Welcome, everyone, to the first live session of our Science of Medical Intuition online course. My name is Christy Peoples, and I'm a producer here at Sounds True, and I'll be your host this evening. Tonight, Carolyn Mays is broadcasting live from Chicago, while the Sounds True team and I are coming to you from our Boulder studios. Carolyn Mays is the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers: Anatomy of the Spirit, Sacred Contracts, Invisible Acts of Power, and Why People Don't Heal and How They Can. A leading voice in the field of energy medicine and human consciousness, Carolyn holds degrees in journalism, theology, intuition, and energy medicine. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you with us. And so I wondered, before we launch into the Q&A, Carolyn, if you have any words of wisdom or support that you'd like to share with the participants tonight.
Well, as we were saying before we started, I would like to just applaud people for studying medical intuition. I believe deeply that medical intuition is going to become one of the more refined and necessary sciences in the decades to come. And it's, for me, as the human energy system and the energetic anatomy system becomes as recognized as the physical anatomy system, then the instrumentation will be developed that can measure it, can validate and work with, and intuitives are going to be part of that. I mean, intuition, I don't know why it baffles people. That baffles me. I mean, I don't know why our being multisensory, or why people are amazed to find out that their emotions, that their biography influences their biology. To me, it's almost primitive to not get that, to be baffled by that. So for me, medical intuitives are the doctors, are physicians of the future. They're a type of physician. And as such, I am also someone who believes that the study of the art and science, because it is a science, is very essential. I have encountered through the decades of my career now so many people, and quite frankly, it's in the majority, who feel that an intuitive craft or an intuitive talent does not require educational support. That because it's come from your intuitive system, that's enough to qualify you to go out and work with other people. Well, it's not, and it never will be. When you are dealing with another person's vulnerabilities, their health, their well-being, you need to be trained. You need to be taught. You need to be mentored. You need supervision. You need a residency. If there was in my dreams, if I could do it and create a system where there was such a thing as doing an intuitive residency program in a healing, not a healing center, but an actual medical center, where the best of allopathic and holistic techniques were combined. That is the vision I would hold, and where each medical intuitive, if you were training to become one, where you would be tested again and again and again and again on your capacity to actually do evaluations for accuracy, not just to say to somebody, well, your energy is off. That helps nobody. In my own career, what I learned way back when I first started, was that Norm, my medical colleague and dear, dear forever friend, he did not need to know. It helped. It doesn't help a doctor, it doesn't help a patient to tell them, well, you know, I sense your energy's off. Vague, useless, meaningless comments like that do not help anybody. What helps is being as precise as a laser. And that's what I trained myself to be. I needed to be as precise as I needed to be to learn how to speak to someone and do a reading that was as accurate as the kind that I would require someone to do for me. And I am as tough as nails when it comes to that. I wouldn't tolerate anything that I think someone could make up or someone could just sense with observational skills, which is why I became so very, very good. And the kind of data that I really found the most useful is not telling someone, you know what, you have cancer in your lower back and da 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 da. By the time someone knows what they have, you're not helping them by telling them what they already have, so that you can impress them and say, wow, she knew I had cancer and da 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 da. If that's how kind of medical intuitive you want to be, then in the words of my beloved Teresa of Avila, go in the kitchen and peel potatoes because you're useless. You're just into trickery. Where you are helpful is in the capacity to sense what is incoming, and you sense it in that gray matter. You sense what's coming in and what can be changed if a person is capable of shifting and what needs to be shifted, because now you're dealing with what is a possible illness, but that is not yet probable. And this is when you actually have the capacity to help someone heal instead of endure. And Norm and I, so many times, I would work with him and say, this person's got an illness coming in, but if they can do this or this or this, get them to work on this issue. And through the years of our work together, we had so many cases where people would be able to work on the issue or they would not. And the results were that they did get the illness that I saw coming in, or they worked on the issue and they did not get it. The art is that you are the servant to this science. And I was very blessed in my years of apprenticeship, which were long, and they were in the mountains of New Hampshire, because it came before the age of Google and the age of computers and the age of Facebook and the age of narcissism, so that it kind of developed my craft while I was living way in the hills of New Hampshire and busy trying to be a publisher. And I did not get up every morning and plug into a computer system and check Facebook and do all these horrible things. I simply got up in the morning and worked on manuscripts, and then Norm would call and he would ask if I could do a reading on a patient in his office. And all I got was the name and age. And then I would hang up the phone and I would go back to work, or I would walk around the farm, or I'd walk in the country. And I lived in a village of 800 people. There was nothing else to do. And that was my life for 10 years. And I did 6 to 8 readings a day, and sometimes even on Christmas. And that was the way it was for 6.5 years. So I wasn't even aware that that's how I was passing my time. I mean, I think the way grace works is that sometimes it puts you in a kind of under a spell that you don't realize how kind of extreme your life has become, but it became very normal and natural for me. And I didn't even think about it, really, until I wrote Creation of Health with Norm. And that's when I organized all my readings. And I saw the patterns that eventually became creation of health. And that was the first time I organized the energetic anatomy system. Up until that time, I didn't realize that somewhere in me I had been kind of logging in the causes for multiple causes for lower back pain, sciatic, breast cancer, that they followed the chakra system. So today, if I had you in a classroom, my first question to you is, how many of you are studying this just to understand your own energy system, just to increase your bank of sacred knowledge, which it is? How many of you actually want to pursue a career as a medical intuitive, in which case, how many of you are apprenticing with a physician for at least 2 to 3 years? Multiple physicians. And I mean apprenticing. I don't mean an occasional phone call and an occasional reading. I mean an apprenticeship. Norm and I we just in fact completed the test for a student who wanted a certification for the American Institute for the Science of Medical Intuition, which we founded, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, because it needs a standard, a gold standard, that says I have been certified by an institute whose certification matters. That's how university started. That's how I passed a test that is rigorous, and it matters that I have this. So I think it's worthy to study this science, because it is the fundamental science for me that should be understood whether or not you are a therapist or you are in any kind of healing art at all, because you're studying the human energy system. You're studying how your whole structure works within the life force system. And it's also the study of how your micro interacts with the macro. So what is in you, what is in one, is in the whole. So if your 7 chakras work like this, then I assure you, even the 7 chakras in the collective society work exactly as your micro 7 chakras do, which means the collective society has a tribal chakra. It has a 2nd chakra, which is its survival chakra. You could look at our collective society today and say the tribal chakra is in fact in great chaos, and the second, and you could do a reading on the collective anatomy system of the society, because it works the same way. It is the same pattern, but it's the bigger version. So that's my beginning.
That was power-packed. Thank you so much for that. And so I want to move right into questions related to what you were just speaking about. The first one comes from Stilton, and he asks, do you think that the energy from electronic devices or wireless networks affect our spirit's energy and life process?
I absolutely do. I also think all of the, what they call dark matter in the air, all of the electronics, because electronics is data. It's carrying data. I mean, it's carrying information, and that information is it can be positive, negative, emotion, toxic. Who knows what's in all this information? And here's the thing. It goes through our fields. And because we know so little about our energy anatomy system, so little, what we know so far, what we're trying to figure out so far, is how our energy anatomy system connects to an illness. That's primitive. We have no idea how our energy anatomy system functions when it, and I rarely ask, I rarely have anybody ask me this, how it connects to creativity, or how it interacts with general, like for example, the prayers that might be said in a church you walk by, or people do not understand how the general energy system, their own energy system, works in everyday life. And now our system, our airwaves, we live in the energetic age, which is filled, and energy is a very deceptive word, because you still think of a light bulb, because you can't see energy. And we don't really get, it's hard for us to conceive of the truth, the fact, the reality, that energy is an alive, active, conscious force that runs through us, that for all we know, because we are electrical, energetic creatures, energetic waves come through us and connect to our energy, run through our brains, run through our system, and then keep going, but download stuff into us, for all we know. And for all we know, that could be the reason why people have crushing depressions and they can't get out of it. They have incredible depressions. They have incredible bipolar situations, that people have, that there's an incredible epidemic of autism, a rise in all kinds of neurological disorders, that people suffer from these horrid new things called brain freeze and who knows what else, because we do not understand what we cannot see. And what's more is, unless we figure out ways to shove it under a microscope or study it that way, it's not real for us. It's not real. And we don't, and our world still does not trust or respect or regard or validate anything that's not real, particularly in the world of emotional energy, psychic energy, this thing we might call the energy field around us. So people don't trust that. So it's going to be who knows how long before we get to a place where, when we say, look, there's energy data in this person's field, and this data needs to be added to the reason why this person's ill. And the word stress that you use in medicine these days, which is the carry-all word for all this data, because you don't know what else to call it, is simply not good enough. So.
And to follow up on that, Cassie has a question. She writes, in light of the angst and toxic emotions that are currently rampant in this country and around the world, do you have specific suggestions for shedding those energies that I've taken on, while also offering a grounded peace as my contribution to the whole?
Well, that's an easy question. Are you kidding? Well, a question like that always, if that, may I have the name of that person again?
Cassie.
Cassie. If Cassie were here with me in the classroom, or if I were her spiritual director and we were one-on-one, I would say, Cassie, I am going to ask you to look at that question again, because it sounds to me like you think you are not part of the creation of all this stress. You're just an observer of it. So I'm going to ask you to ask the question again from the position of, I am creating this stress that I am a part of in this society. So how can I participate in not avoiding it and protecting myself, but participate in the creating of a less stressful, and participate in the healing of this? One of the characteristics that's very common is that we see ourselves as observers of negativity and not participants in the creation of it, when in fact we are tremendous participants in the creation of negativity. And we generate psychic free radicals all the time. And part of what we need to do is become extremely mindful that of the truth, the spiritual truths that we know to be true, like what is in one is in the whole. What I do to the least of my brethren, I do to myself. And if I judge another, I am judging myself. How I need to act and walk with kindness. The principles that I believe to be true spiritually, I need to live by without exception, not just with the people I care about, but most especially with the people I do not. I need to walk the way I need to become congruent. So the best answer I can give you is that if you want to make a difference in the world, become a congruent person. Just start there.
Yvonne writes, through your guidance, I learned how important it is to forgive others in order to achieve my healing, but I'm unsure how to approach forgiving myself for all of the hurt and pain that I've caused myself and others in the past. Can you offer insight on how to forgive myself?
It's funny, forgiving yourself, and I know this from personal experience, is a wretchedly difficult thing to do. It is wretchedly difficult. Forgiving others is a cakewalk compared to the task of self-forgiveness, because you have to face up to something. And I think what you have to face up to is the deliberateness of the choices you make. I mean, I think you can't let yourself off the hook. You have to, people say, well, you did the best you could at the time. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. It's a 4-star flaming butane lie. You did not do the best you could at the time. You did what you wanted to at the time. 90% of the time, you did what you wanted to, and that's what you have to own. That your actions served you, and that in some way, shape, or form, that for that moment in time, you made a choice that it turned out to be careless, it turned out to be foolish, it turned out to be harmful, that however it is you made the equation, on that day, you didn't care about the needs of others. And you have to own that in a moment, in a second, you actually knew that others might pay the price for that decision. And you didn't back down. You did it anyway. And that's, once you get through that truth, once you get through that very painful eye of the needle, owning that and getting through, yeah, I really did that, and cleaning out that cavity, then you can forgive yourself. The rest of the time, you're just lying to yourself and saying, I did the best I could at my time. Well, you're just adding to the lie. You're living a lie, which is why you can't forgive yourself. You got to get out of the lie and get to the truth, which is I didn't do the best I could at the time. I did what I wanted.
In the course, Carolyn, you also talk about the importance of forgiveness as being a central piece of intuitive study. Can you say more about that?
I'm sorry. My mind drifted to something else I wanted to say on forgiveness. So you can ask me that again, or I get to say something else.
Please do.
I want to add something on forgiveness, everyone. The same the same little caveat applies when you find it difficult to forgive others and they find it difficult to forgive you. It turns out most of the time that it's not because of what you did or what they did. It's because in your heart of hearts and in their heart of hearts, they know that the choice to do what you did, and you know the choice to do what they did, or what they did, was conscious, and that they made a choice in which the consequences, however those consequences turned out, the consequences to leave you, the consequences to divorce, the consequences to have an affair, whatever it is, and all the hurt that it would bring, that it didn't matter. They went ahead and did it anyway. So when someone says, I never meant to hurt you, or someone does something at work and you end up having to take a hit for it, whatever it is, and they say, well, I never meant to, or you do something, and then you say to someone, I never meant to. The truth is that they don't forgive you and you don't forgive them because you actually did mean to, and it didn't stop you. They actually did mean to, and it didn't stop them. And in forgiveness, here's the key, and here's the word. And we don't forgive each other because what we've done is we have taken out the essential vocabulary. And that's the vocabulary of the soul, which is this. If somebody said to you, you're absolutely right. I did know what I was doing, and I did break my word, and you're right. And I need to tell you, it was a sin. It wasn't just a boo-boo. It wasn't just a bad thing, a bummer. I sinned against you. I knowingly broke my word to you. And I told this other person, and the result was you lost your job. And it was deliberate. And I did it deliberately. And so if I said to you, I never meant to hurt you, that's a lie. And you know it's a lie. And that's what you can't forgive. You can't forgive the conscious part of it. And it's the conscious part that makes it a sin. And here's the reason I teach spiritual direction. And I'm so grateful to be able to have my art as a medical intuitive and a spiritual director. And I see that the soul must be a participant in healing. Because without the language of the soul, without an understanding that there is such a thing as sin, people don't heal. You won't heal. No matter what you learn in medical intuition, it's going to be insufficient when it comes to healing, because you won't get that the language of the mind is an insufficient vocabulary. It does not and cannot reach the soul. And when it comes to things like forgiveness, you need the language of the soul. You need someone who would say to you, I sinned against you. I own it. I acknowledge. I knowingly did what I did. And I knew it was going to hurt you, and it didn't stop me. That's not a boo-boo. That's a sin, a conscious act. Knowing another human being will pay the price for what I do is a sin. Now, if you drop that word back in your vocabulary, and you say, did I sin against myself? Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that you heard your own instincts talk to you. Your own instinct. Now, that's your soul. And your soul says, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't violate yourself. Do not violate yourself. Do not sell your creativity. Do not violate yourself. Do not put yourself in that situation. Do not do that. But you do it anyway. You betray yourself. You agree to things you don't mean. You say things you don't mean. You constantly violate yourself. Things come out of your mouth that are lies, endless lies. You're constantly violating your integrity. You don't even know who you are anymore. You're sinning against yourself. You're not strong enough to protect yourself. You think someone else should do it. And when you're ill, what should a medical intuitive say to you? What should a medical intuitive actually say to you? Are you strong enough as a medical intuitive to say to someone, you know what's the problem with you? You're a liar. You're a compulsive liar. You can't protect yourself. You don't have what it takes to protect yourself. You never say an honest word. Where are you? You're all over the place. I am strong enough to do that. I am strong enough to say that to somebody. But I've rarely met a medical intuitive who could spot that. And you know what? That's the beginning of a serious illness. And if you're not that sharp, if you're not that clear, what are you going to tell somebody? Your energy's off. Not good enough, people. This requires medical intuition and spiritual direction. Put them together and you're ready to go. Okay, go.
Well, I got a couple more questions that came up that I want to just present too. And when an addict, let's say someone who is maybe suffering from alcoholism or someone who is a chain smoker for years and years, if they are maybe trying to quit, but something happens and there's an upset and they go back to smoking or they have a drink, how much would you say is conscious behavior or how much is subconscious? Or
how much what of the addiction or what?
How much of the drive to go back to smoking or drinking or someone who is trying to break a habit, are we being driven by our subconscious or is it a deliberate desire on our part?
Well, everybody's got drives, the cravings in the outside world. Let's just say whether it's smoking or drinking or food or attention or the desire for stuff or security. What is not an addiction in any of those? Tell me. Which one? They're all addictions. The need to be first is an addiction. The need to win is an addiction. Gambling is an addiction. So what drives any of them? They're all the same. They're all the same and they're equally lethal. I put them all in the same category.
And to what extent are they sins or transgressions?
I think that any action becomes a sin when another person pays a price for what you're doing. When another person pays a price for what you're doing. Okay? So if I was a gambler, for example, and I couldn't stay away from the poker table or the what do you call that thing with dice, craps or something, and my children went hungry because of it, that to me falls into the category of sin. If it was just gambling and me and I'm losing my rent, that comes in the category of stupid. Stupid. That's stupid. But once I involve the well-being of other people and they have to pick up, and they're now suffering as a result of what I'm doing. They have to pick up the pieces. They have to pick up my life. They have to pull. They're now suffering because of what I'm doing. Now I enter the category of, and now here's another thing that has to happen. I now am lying to them about what I'm doing. Because here we run into that kind of thing where, I had a brother who was an alcoholic, and he died from it. And we went through a lot of treatment programs. We went through a lot of hardcore stuff. And would I say that was he was sinning along the way? Not at all. No, and no. Because it was a suffering, it was brutal, it was horrible. It was horrible, brutal. But there comes a point where along the way, I think that there's a thin line, and I don't think he crossed it because, and I'm not saying it because he was my brother, but I think that the illness in him was so strong that he was too ill to sin. Isn't that a funny thing to say? But the illness was so strong that it was stronger. It was like a possession, and I think people who are serious addicts can understand what I'm saying, and I think they would agree. But you have to be somewhat conscious to actually decide to... A sin is a conscious thing. You know what I'm saying? It's conscious. It's that you actually are doing things and your own instincts tell you. It's not like you have to sit back and say, I think I'm going to do this and hurt this person. But our beings, our nature is programmed to tell right from wrong. You know it in your gut. You don't, I mean, think of how many times during the day the choices you make come from your gut and not your mind. Think of it. I mean, if you were to reflect on your day, you would realize that any number of decisions you make, from crossing a street to what to eat to what to do, actually come from your gut and not from your sitting back and thinking, should I do this, pro or con, yes or no, You're actually responding to information being given to you versus consciously thinking about it. Can you relate to what I just said?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so let's say that what you're doing is you're responding to this constant flow of guidance, which says you're very conscious. You're very conscious. You're consciously in tune with yourself. You're listening to your conscience and you're listening to your consciousness. So they're both working like two little wheels inside of you. And so there's a sense of you having a rapport with your inner nature, that so that you are actually making decisions that serve you, and in the serving of you, it serves your health, it serves your well-being, and it serves others, and you don't actually get stopped, quote, dead in your tracks until you make a decision that is actually out of sync, that is actually in some way throws you off balance. It actually is out of rhythm for you. Like let's just say you're diabetic and you behave yourself. You watch your sugar, you walk, you do your exercises, and then you don't get stopped until you stop in front of a bakery and think, I want that cookie. And then your whole system goes into an alarm. The whole system, your intuition, your gut instinct, your conscience, everything goes mayday, 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 ding, 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 because it's going into an overdrive alert. This is not good. You're not going to have this. It's going to throw you into overdrive. Everything starts. The wording starts. Everything. And if you act against that, consciously knowing I'm about to do something that puts my life at risk. It puts my life at risk. Puts my life at risk. This isn't a cookie. This is a suicide mission. It puts my life at risk. And my whole system's telling me that. I'm almost having a beatific vision. What is that? Is that a boo-boo? Or is that what you'd call a sin against yourself?
If I'm powerless against it, or if in the moment I feel so compelled to have that cookie, or, maybe in my case, a donut, I don't think that I would see it as a sin against myself in that moment, so much as a lapse in good judgment. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm making that okay for myself to do that.
See, that's where if you really came and said, if you called it something stronger, letting yourself say it's a lapse of judgment is just playing a word game, saying I want it and I'm going to let myself off the hook.
Okay. So I'd like to go back to a question about forgiveness.
But you see what I mean? I mean, here's the
do.
thing. When your health is at stake, it's like the addiction with alcohol or whatever. It's one of those questions where it's the kind of thing that it's like rabbinical. Does it really have an answer, or is it one in which we simply discuss a perspective? And it's more of a rabbinical dynamic to discuss for the sake of thought. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I want to take you back to forgiveness and how central it is to cultivating a relationship with the self in this path of building intuition. Can you talk about why forgiveness is so important on this journey of intuition?
Oh, yeah. Well, forgiveness is not a rational act, and neither is intuition. Intuition's not rational. Intuitive hits aren't rational or logical. And there's nothing rational or reasonable about forgiveness. And that was something that Jesus was very clear about. Everything about, and the reasonable mind, the reasoning mind, I should say, sees forgiveness as defeat, as saying to someone, what you did doesn't matter. And that has nothing to do with forgiveness. In fact, if people understood forgiveness, they would truly grasp that it's the most selfish thing a person can do for themselves, because it is a mystical act. And what it is all about is that the teacher Jesus set himself up, like the end of his life. It was like his grand exit. And he said, look, I am going to do something because I have to animate a new template, a new way of you understanding how life is set up on this earth. And a new way of you interacting with your power. So I'm going to live this template out, and then you guys can take it from there. Because up until that time, the way the world saw justice was an eye for an eye. And that's how they thought the world was ordered. But the world was soon going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more conscious. And Jesus kind of opened up the fourth chakra. Buddha blew open the sixth. And so Jesus said, this is kind of the way the inner world works. So I'm going to open up your inner structure so you can kind of take charge of this act of forgiveness and see things differently, because up until then it was all the tribe made emotional decisions. If the tribe hated, you hated because you were part of the tribe. Forgiveness is an individual act. So Jesus says here, I'm going to do this. I am going to live out every single reason somebody who's a part of the tribe uses to get even, to be vengeful, to be hateful, to be petty, to be prideful. I'm going to go through every single thing, and I'm going to show you how to act differently. So from the get-go, I will be betrayed by my tribe. All you 12, except for John, all of you. You will betray me. And you will abandon me. You, Peter, first. And then after that, I will be arrested for something I didn't do. So so nothing is fair. And I'm going to tell you right now, nothing will ever be fair here. So don't look for that. Nothing will ever, ever, ever be fair here. And before that, I'm going to kneel down and I'm going to say to God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Take this away from me, because this thing, I'd rather do something else in Jerusalem this weekend, but like anything else but this, I don't want to do this. And I will hear nothing. So I'm going to tell you right now that when you hear nothing, nothing is an answer. Nothing means the plan's in motion. You have to do what's ahead of you. I'm not changing plans. I don't have to talk to you if I'm not changing plans. That is my answer. Silence is an answer. So then he gets arrested, and he says, now, when I'm arrested, you're going to betray me, so pay attention. All of you will be betrayed on earth. You will always be betrayed. That's because you think you're the center of the universe. You think that everybody owes you honor, and you give honor to nobody. You will always be betrayed. So don't expect any human being to live an honor code you're incapable of living. Stop it. You are weak, and that's the way all of you are. Then I will be tried for a crime I did not commit. There is no crime. There never was a crime. But he stands before Pontius Pilate, and Pilate says, what has this man done? He hasn't done anything. So he says to Jesus, what have you done? Talk to me, man. And he just stands there and he says, look, there's a feast here this weekend. I get to free somebody. I get to free one of you guys. Explain yourself. And he says, I have all the power in the world. And then Jesus shoots him a dart and says, I talked to my dad last night in the Garden of Gethsemane. You are my puppet. Pilate freezes and screams, get this man out of here. Crucify him. Turn him over to the crowds. Scares the hell out of him. So then Jesus goes and he gets crucified. But on the cross, he screams, why have you forsaken me? So he says, look, you're even going to think God has abandoned you. And then he looks around and he says, oops, forgot something. And he says, forgive them. They don't even realize they were part of this drama. They had to do this. They had to do the whole thing. They think that they were doing something. They're just minions. They're just players. I forgive them all. They had to do this. This was fabulous. I'll see them on the other side. And then he says, I release my spirit. It is me who lets go of this earth. I do. I'm out of this nightclub. So what forgiveness is the realization that I put expectations on my life, on everybody's life, on everything to work out for me and only me the way I wanted it to. I expected this person to do this, that person to do this to be that. I expected no one in my family to die, this to happen, me never to get divorced, absolutely nothing unfair and unjust to happen to me. And when it didn't, when someone talked behind my back, it didn't occur to me that I talked behind someone else's back. No. What is forgiveness? But the realization that the whole thing has been a living drama for me to see myself and to realize that all the anger in a situation, all the fear, anything can drive up in me. I didn't know how angry I could get, how enraged I could get until I was ripped off. I thought, where did that come from? Where did that come from? And I thought it was astonishing to me that an incident like that, I thought, how dare, and what was it? It was this sense of, how dare someone rip me off when I've never ripped anybody off? How could that happen? Well, it did happen. It did happen. And it made me think, where did I get off thinking it couldn't happen to me? Shame on me. How dare I think that way? How dare I think that way? And what a way to change my life. So what's forgiveness about? It is this journey of becoming a humble person and recognizing, why can't those things happen to you? Got it?
Got it. Thank you. Zoo asks, What does it look and feel like to have a wise distribution of energy in the body?
A wise distribution? Did I hear that right?
Yes, you did. A wise distribution.
I don't know. I actually don't know what that means.
Okay. Let's go to another question that Sue offers. You talked about protecting one's self from energetic attacks. Can you describe the feeling and what to do about it?
Well, I don't think there's any mystery to that. All you have to do is think of what it's like to have someone yell at you. And you know what an energetic attack is like. So that's what it feels like. It feels like someone's yelling at you, but you feel it energetically, and you know, or everybody knows what it's like to be in the presence of someone who, though they are not speaking to you, you feel that anger, you feel that psychic field. So that's what it feels like. And when it comes to protecting, I'm kind of an old-fashioned sort of mystic, and I adhere to the power of prayer. And I really, 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 really did absorb everything I wrote in Entering the Castle. I ate up every word I wrote. I lived by every word I wrote in that book and in Defy Gravity. I seal myself in my interior castle. I put up a drawbridge, and I literally pray, hover over me, God. And I put myself in a field of grace. And I pray that way constantly. And I pretty often say a prayer during the day, because I really do believe in the power of grace and prayer and random prayers. I pretty much do live in that space. Yeah. I like it.
Thank you. Sheila asks a question about practical application for this material. What is the best and most organized way to use these materials, both written and recorded, to learn the subject matter as you have presented it?
Again, I have to know what you do in your life. So I would have to apply it to that. I don't know if you're a teacher, a practitioner, I don't know how to counsel you because I don't know what you do. You could be somebody who's working with people who want to learn massage. I don't know how to, if you're just learning it for yourself. So if you're just learning for yourself, then, excuse me for 1 minute. Then this knowledge becomes extremely useful in that it's a way of maintaining your own balance, your own sense of health, your own sense of well-being in the world. You learn how to work with your anatomy system. You learn how to read your own energy system, your own power centers. You learn how to sense if you're hemorrhaging. I mean, it's and especially if you add anatomy of the spirit to it, so that you have a sense of how incredibly complex the 7 chakras are. That they also resonate to the 7 sacraments and the tree of life and the 7 mansions of Teresa and all of the incredible, rich structure of the holy that is you, that you dwell in, that you are dwelling in this radiant system, not of energy, but of grace. If you could understand that you are not, thinking in terms of energy is actually for an amateur. That if I had you in spiritual direction, we would eventually get to the place where you would understand that you are dwelling in a field of grace. And that energy is what a person uses when they can't yet conceive of the whole world as a breathing system of the sacred. And they're not yet able to imagine that they, in fact, are one with everybody and everything. And they don't want to go there yet, so they have to reduce it down to energy. But energy will never heal you. You have to get to the place where you recognize I'm working with grace, and God grant me the grace. Let grace run through me as I work with this person, because energy does not have what it takes. But you are at least learning the first basics, which is the anatomy system, the energetic anatomy system, which is what you must work with. And then you add on the sacraments. You add on the tree of life. You add on the 7 levels of the Sufism. There's so much. Where am I teaching that? I just put that together. Oh, where am I teaching that? Oh, I can't remember. Well, whatever.
Okay. It looks like we have time for one final question, and this one comes from Irena. She asks, can you speak more about the difference between the terms losing your spirit and losing your energy? Can spirit be equated with energy?
I think of energy as, like discharging sparks, but spirit is a conscious part of you. So energy is, to me, energy is like the sparks that are in you, but your spirit is part of your nature. So it kind of has an ID to it. It's different. It's different. Energy's everywhere, but your spirit is you.
Carolyn, thank you so much tonight for your feedback and this powerful information.
Thank all of you. Thank all of you for studying this. Thank you for your dedication to this art and to your own life and to doing all of this. Thank you for a wonderful interview, and I hope I can do this again with you, because it's so important to learn this and learn it well. So give it all you got, because it matters now more than ever, believe me. So blessings on all of you.
Any more closing comments for your participants tonight as they move forward in the program?
Oh, I have to tell you, give it all you got. This matters so much. It matters to you. It matters to your health. It matters to your world. It matters. You have no idea how much it changes the world behind your eyes, and that changes the world in front of your eyes. And don't study sacred material with this idea of what's its practical application. Study it because it's the right thing to do, and let God do the rest.
Wonderful words to live by. So this concludes.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for being with us tonight. This is going to conclude our first live session of our Science of Medical Intuition online course. Once again, thank you so much, Carolyn Mace, for an outstanding evening, and thank you to all of the participants who submitted questions. We couldn't get to many of them, but we so appreciate you being here with us tonight. Please join us for our next live session with Norm Shealy, which will take place on December 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For Sounds True, I'm Christy Peoples. Thanks again for being with us. SoundsTrue.com. Many voices, one journey.